Hello everybody, here we are today continuing on with our NHL season previews, and in this one we're going to be covering the Minnesota Wild and talking about whether or not Minnesota can get back to the postseason. So before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So I would like to point out that the 4 teams that we've covered so far, 3 of them are Central Division sides. That was not planned, but I had a buddy at work that is a huge Hawks fan, so he said, can you cover them early on? And I said, yes. The other 2 are thanks to our wheel spinner. So we end up with Minnesota here today, and they are a team that finished with 87 points and missed the playoffs for just the second time in the past 12 seasons, a mainstay in the playoff conversation over the past decade or so. But this offseason wasn't particularly crazy, and I'd say at the moment that the highlight was probably the Brock Faber 8-year extension that they did, and now we wonder a little bit whether or not they're going to be able to get back into the playoff conversation with what they've got, because that's really what it's probably going to come down to, as we know they've been willing to spend money, but they may not be seeing the results they're going to want or hope for going into this year. So with that being said, what are some storylines to watch out for this season? So the first storyline is how much more can their young core do? So I'm not exactly sure how you want to break this down, but when looking at 4 of their 5 top scorers last year, they were all 27 or younger entering the season, and they contributed heavily to whether or not this team is going to be successful. This year, though, if they are trying to get back into the playoffs, you have to wonder, are they going to have a Herculean effort? Kirill Kaprizov, has led the way during this run, as he's been a mainstay to be a lock to score 40 goals or more, and it's just been a monster. Does he suddenly have to go out there and score 50 or 60 goals? I don't know. I hope not, but he is a player that has been a focal point and a leader for this side and looks to be one of the greatest Minnesota Wild players ever, and he could have to be even taking it up a step further to try to get this team back where they want to go. Then you're looking at guys like Matt Boldy. He signed a 7-year extension, I do believe, here recently, and is coming off of his first 30-goal season. I think it might actually be back-to-back. It was right around there where I think the year prior to this, he had 29 goals. Either way, basically year 1, 2, and 3 have gone well for him, and he is growing up to be a very good player for this team. He's still very young, but he's expected to do a lot. How much more is he going to be expected to do? And then you have Joel Eriksson Ek, that has been a great two-way player for the team before. He just set a career high for goals. Is he just going to have to be a two-way star to get this team going and have this top 6 be able to contribute a whole bunch? I don't know. Then you've got Brock Faber, who ended up signing an 8-year extension. Brock was a player that finished 2nd in Calder voting last season, played 6th most minutes in the entire league, aside from goalies, because we're going to ignore that, and was able to be a really good player in that time. Obviously, had nearly 50 points, played all 82 games, and looks to be probably a top-pairing defenseman for the team going forward. But when you're looking at all these things and realizing this was an 87-point team last year, you start to say, is this going to be enough to get the job done? My answer is no, because it never should be. You should never have 4 players where you say, guys, you guys have to do it all in order for us to make the postseason. This is a good quartet is what I was going for, and when you see this bunch, you understand that they are going to be able to play good hockey, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this team is going to be able to reciprocate that. I'm just saying with all of this, you can expect them to have a good year, but maybe the team won't. Now, the second talking point is whether or not this team is going to be able to get their PK right and situated for this season. Now, last year, looking at the penalty kill for this side, they finished with the 3rd worst PK percentage in the entire league. And this was in large part to the start that they had with Dean Evason, where they got off to a really slow beginning to the season. They ended up allowing the most goals on the PK during that run, and that is not ideal. Now, thankfully, afterwards, they were able to clean things up a little bit, and nobody came anywhere close to being the Anaheim Ducks over the final 60-something games of the season, as San Jose allowed like 70-something goals on the PK in 60 games. Everybody else, even the teams that were right behind them, had like 50. So looking at Minnesota, it is good to know things got better for them. But still, if you want to try to take that step back forward, you have to be better on the penalty kill. And if we're being honest here, especially at the start of the year, the goaltending was better than what they're getting in terms of defensive results. And they're going to need more all around from this group. We know that they have people that are willing to sacrifice themselves. Middleton and Brodin especially finished top 25 in the league for block shots on the PK, but that is not everything. And I think I'd actually like to see Middleton maybe get some more minutes on the PK this year, as he signed a 4-year extension and is seen as a probable player for them going forward. But also, I just want to see these minutes distributed a little bit better. I worry a little bit, especially with Brock Faber, if he's going to be playing here if he's going to be getting fatigued, Joel Anderson, etc. You have some of these guys that could be situated in a variety of situations, playing even strength, 5-on-5, again, power play, PK, all these things. It's very difficult to be able to stay fresh in the NHL over the grueling 82-game stretch, so you want to see things get better. And I think if the PK is going to be better for them and they get off the better start to the year, then absolutely they should be in a good spot to be in the playoff conversation, as well as the fact that, like we've already mentioned, they've got 4 relatively young players that range from pretty good to great. And then the final talking point will be, how do they fare against Central Division teams? I believe at some point we talked about this during the offseason. I don't know, because we've put out a lot of videos this year, nearly a video per day so far. And when you're looking at a lot of the things we've covered, one of these things that I imagine we talked about at some point is the fact that Minnesota last year went 8-11-3 within the division, which seems okay-ish until you realize that 5 of those wins came against the Chicago Blackhawks and the Arizona Coyotes, now known as Utah Hockey Club. What sticks out there is the fact that they went undefeated against Chicago and then did well against an Arizona team that is now dealing with the fact that they moved. And when you look at that compared to the fact that they played other teams and ended up going, 3-10-3 during that stretch, you do realize that things could be a little bit problematic for the side, as he went 0-9-0 against the top 3 teams in their division. Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, those are all sides that are going to be expected to try to play well and be in the thick of it this year, as well as a team like Nashville that they did relatively well against last year. I think they picked up 1 or 2 wins against them. That could be a problem. Again, with a team or division that is 6 teams deep at least, you have to be worried a little bit about things here. Nashville probably will be better. St. Louis could be a better side. They finished with, 92 points on the year. That is not easy. Chicago should be better. Utah has improved their blue line. The Central Division, my buddy said it last year when a lot of us were joking about how the Central could look really weak or very top-heavy. The Central looks like it could be pretty deep this year. And I'm not saying that Chicago or Utah necessarily is going to go out there and win the division, but I am saying for a team like Minnesota, where the wins might be hard to come by in this division, that could be the make it or break it on how they get to the playoffs. Because if you can't sneak a win against Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, Nashville, or whoever, that could spell trouble for you, because at the end of the year, when you are, 6 points back and you had a atrocious divisional record, that could indicate why you weren't able to get there. And if this was the case, it's not necessarily all Minnesota's fault. I guess you could say it was, but this year in the Central looks like it's going to be an all-out brawl. So overall, what are my thoughts on the Minnesota Wild? I think they're going to be a team that's going to be led by Kirill Kaprizov, and he could go out there and possibly win some NHL hardware by the end of the season, and they could be in the mix. I mean, looking at this team, they're going to be getting Jared Spurgeon back at some point this year after only playing 16 games last season. They hopefully aren't going to get off the bad start like last year. They have a few younger guys that could really contribute, as we haven't got to see a lot of them just yet, but they were first and second round picks for the team, maybe even some more value guys from this group. But I do think that there are some concerning things about this side, as they've already tried to address some of these problems and keep some of these players long term. But this comes after a year where they didn't even crack 90 points and were 12 points back of a playoff spot. And I know people will look at the stat that I just mentioned earlier about the record against the Central Division and say, well, that's a throwaway stat possibly. Probably not. If they end up finishing outside the playoff spot, especially if they look bad in their division back-to-back years, could indicate that they aren't ready to be in the playoffs. And then at that point, you're looking at guys like Boldy and Faber that are under long-term deals. Kaprizov, I think, is going to be a free agent here within the next couple of seasons. What does he want to do? Where is this team going to be? Not saying that this is going to be the end of an era completely for this side, but I do think that this season is important for them, and I am hoping that they're going to be in the mix. I don't think this is going to be a team that is, bottom 5 in the league or anything, but I feel pretty safe saying that they probably won't be top 3 in their division. Not exactly sure that I trust Gustafsson and Fleury to be the 1-2 punch there in net, and I am a little bit curious as well to see if John Hines can lead this bunch, as he has never led or won a postseason series, I believe, in his head coaching tenure, and he would possibly be able to do it with a team that hasn't won in the first round since 2015. So yes, those are my quick thoughts on the Minnesota Wild, and I will say I feel like Minnesota fans probably have somewhat realistic expectations on what this year could be for them, but I want to know what all you guys think. Do you think Minnesota is a playoff team? Do you think they're top 3 in their division? Do you think they even get out of the first round this year? If so, tell me who's going to be leading the way and how many points they'll finish with on the year. Let me know all those thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you're new. This will be in a series you can check out at the end of this video. So if you want to do that, I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, everybody, please make sure to stay safe. Have a great night. And you love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.